Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast. My name is Sofia Wolfson, and I'm here today because I have the very insane privilege of getting to talk to Dan Reeder, who is a visual artist, a musician. He builds all his own instruments and microphones, and he's even working on a synthesizer right now we're going to get into. He's probably best known for putting out records on Oh Boy Records, John Prine's label, and getting kind of quote-unquote discovered by John Prine. But he's released music throughout the years, and he is a profound visual artist. He lives and works in Nuremberg, Germany, but he spent a lot of his childhood in California, which we're going to talk about. And he's got a new record out just in the last year called Smithereens. This conversation is really fun because he called me from his studio in Nuremberg, and so you'll hear that he kind of talked me through some of his current projects and fascinations and the technicalities of what he's working on. He's truly a legend in kind of singer-songwriter circles, so much so that just last year in Nashville, they put on this tribute to him where incredible artists like MJ Lenderman played Dan Reeder songs. And we talk a bit about that at the end. He's got some funny things to say about the tribute to himself. So, without further ado, here is my conversation with Dan Reeder. The Fretboard Journal podcast is brought to you by a handful of great brands, so please follow them. First up is Peghead Nation. For 10 years now, it's been the finest spot on the internet to become a better acoustic player. Get your first month free or $20 off any annual subscription with the promo code FRETBOARD at checkout. We're also sponsored by Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar and Stringjoy Strings. You can save 10% on your first order at stringjoy.com with the promo code, all caps, FRETBOARD. Thank you so much for coming on the Fretboard Journal podcast today.
You're quite welcome.
So I always love to start with origins when I'm interviewing people. So do you remember your first interaction with the guitar or one of your earliest memories with the guitar?
Yeah, my sister got one. She wanted one for her birthday, and she got a classical guitar, and it made me angry. I thought, why does she need a guitar? That's really a stupid instrument. Yeah,
Okay, so
she was.
you thought it was stupid at first. When did that change for you?
Um, that changed about maybe 5 years later. I got to be 16, 17, and found out you could do fun stuff on a guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first guitar that was all your own?
That was probably it was an Epiphone, and it was a wonderful guitar, like a really, really nice Epiphone, an old one,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to have new strings on it. If it didn't have new strings, it didn't sound good.
Right.
Because we had the Epiphone, and then we had a guitar. The brand was called Lyle, Lyle,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fucking terrible. It was like no, it like how some guitars just are not sort of in sync with themselves. It was one of those
Absolutely.
kind, and it was terrible. So if I'd play with my brother, it's like the battle would be who got to play the Epiphone
And who had to get demoted to the Lyle.
and who got demoted to this stupid Lyle. Yeah.
That's so great. So I know you spent a big chunk of your childhood in California. Um, I am from Los Angeles.
Ah, okay.
So I was
Where, where
curious.
in where in LA are you from?
I grew up in the Hancock Park, Larchmont Village area.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was there my whole childhood. So I was curious to hear a bit about how your California origins influenced your music because you were there in some very formative years. Is there any way
Hmm.
you see a connection between those two?
Um, no,
No.
I don't think so. No. Well, of course, where you grew up and how you grew up is going to influence everything you do. Um, but I didn't. I'm still not. I don't think of myself as a musician. I
Mm,
think of myself as an artist. Like I
mm,
studied painting at Cal State Fullerton.
right.
Um, and that had more of an influence on my songwriting anyway than anything else.
Could you talk a bit about that? Because this is actually one of my like main areas of interest, which is
Oh, okay,
like the cross section between visual art and music.
okay,
So could you talk a bit about how studying painting influenced your songwriting?
yeah. Um, Basically, it's like this: if you study music, they want you to practice, and if you study art, they want you to do whatever the fuck you want. In fact, no, they require it. You have to
Yeah.
do whatever the fuck you want. That's like on day one, the first thing they tell you is we cannot tell you how to make art. You
Mm.
have to figure that out on your own. And so um, what I did was I used the I'm going to call it visual vocabulary that I used in the seventh and eighth grade, making little cartoons and passing them back and forth um, to a guy I sat next to in school.
Hmm.
And so anything, you can do anything. Anything is allowed. You can use, little bubbles where people talk, or the little ones where they think, or you can use, anything. You can make it like five things happening at once, or like a little cartoon series. Um, yeah, anything you want. And uh, that's how I did painting. That's how I still do painting. And that's also how I sort of approach songwriting.
So that's really interesting. I totally agree with that distinction. So then I'm curious to hear a bit more about your Cal State Fullerton years, you know. What was it like being in school, even though there's this kind of ethos of do whatever you want?
Well, the thing about that is, because of course you've got the problem that you're there to learn how to make art, and the first thing they tell you is they can't tell you how to make art. So what you're sort of counting on are your professors um, being good guys.
Hmm.
And I was fortunate to have some really good and fun professors. They totally get it. They understand that uh, yeah. I mean, it's just a fact. You cannot teach somebody how to make art. They have to like sort of figure it out for themselves. And um, and so you talk about it, and 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 you paint a picture and you put it up there, and people criticize it or say, "What are you doing here?" or "Why did you do that?" or "What is this supposed to? What effect is that supposed to have?" or "Why did you?" And so that's how you um, sort of hone down your I'm going to call it a method uh, of painting.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I think so much of what you're saying is applicable to songwriting too.
yeah.
Um, who, when you began to write songs, who were you digging? Who were you listening to?
I don't really listen to very much music.
Okay.
Of course, I've got some favorite songwriters. John Prine was always a favorite of mine because it's like, oh yeah, you know. Um, See, the thing is, I didn't start writing songs to emulate somebody else. I started writing songs so I'd have something to sing.
Yeah.
Like my voice, as you can hear, is kind of weird. It's like sort of high and just weird, sort of airy. Um, and so I had a hard time like singing in a choir because they
Mm.
couldn't hear me. Um, and when I found out I could like sing into a microphone, into a computer, and I could sing harmony with myself,
Yeah.
uh, I was like, fantastic. This is fantastic. And then so I recorded Angel Band about 50 times.
Uh-huh.
And it's simple, you just get tired of singing Angel Band. So I started writing my own stuff.
Yeah. You
And
just mentioned, oh, go ahead.
that was why I wrote songs, period. So I have something to record.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned John Prine
Yeah.
as an influence. Could you tell the listeners a bit about sending him your record and getting on Oh Boy?
Okay, well, what happened was actually I have to say Todd Snyder tells a better story about that,
Okay.
but um, but his story is not strictly true. Um,
Okay, we're getting the facts here.
well, No, his story is better though. It's more fun to listen to. What actually happened was, I was making like CDs. I'd burned my own CDs and I printed the covers. And a lot of times I would draw pictures, like just the covers. I would just hand draw the covers. Um, and I was selling them in Nuremberg here, and I'd sold quite a few. And then I think I'd probably sold as many as I was going to sell.
Hmm.
And so I thought I would send some to like people I admired. Like I would have sent one to Bruce Springsteen
Hmm.
or Emmylou Harris, or there were a lot of people. I had a little list. And so I thought, well, I'll just send them one. And the only guy I could find whose address was online was John Prine. So I sent him one. And with a little letter explaining that I had made the guitars and made the basses and made the fiddles and made the everything, and recorded it myself. I made the computer even. And yeah, and I got a call from Al Brunetta. That was the well, what John called the daytime president of Open Records. He said nothing ever happens in the daytime. Um, yeah, I came home one night from the pub. I was like two, it was 2 in the morning or something, and I was pretty drunk actually. Phone rings. You don't want the phone to ring at 2 in the morning, you know.
No.
It was like, oh shit, what is this? I answer the phone and it's Al Bonetta telling me that they wanted to put out my record. So I was like, okay.
Yeah, what were you feeling in that moment?
Well, I was like shocked. Like, what the fuck? Uh, well, I mean, what came as a complete surprise. I had sent it to him just as sort of a thank you. Seriously, like I was going to send all these people uh, just as sort of a thank you. Now, at the time I didn't know that like people give John Prine or gave John Prine records all the time.
Mm.
People gave him CDs all the time.
Do you have any Prime stories for us? It sounds like you spent a lot of time with him.
Um, you know, um, well, this pissed off his band. One time I walked up and I said, John, the part of your show that everybody loves is where you just stand up there and play by yourself. Why do you have these guys? Just get rid of them and do that part.
Uh-huh.
And and of course, Dave Jakes is standing there. He's like, Dan, shut the fuck up. What are you doing? Um, but John said, well, it just gets lonely up there.
Mm.
And in the meantime, I've done some gigs alone. And usually I do it with my daughter.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a huge difference, man. To have somebody up there with you
Yeah,
is like,
could you talk this was one of my questions I wanted to ask you, which is could you talk a bit I know you've been touring with your daughter.
mm,
When did that start and what's that experience like?
right. That started when I won an art prize from the city of Nuremberg. And well, actually I won two of them, but this was the second one, and it was for music actually. And they had a prize for where they give you the prize, like a show.
Mm.
And all the people who won prizes had to do a 3-minute presentation of what they do. So I thought, well, I'll just sing a song with Peggy.
Mm.
And she was, I think, 13 at the time.
Wow.
And we were backstage, and like in the audience are like 700 people out there. Like the mayor is out there, and the culture mayor is out there, and every gallery owner in town is out there, and every important and rich person in the town is out there. And you can hear them. I remember, you know how that sounds when you're backstage.
Yeah.
And Peggy said, "Papa, you're all nervous." And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "There's nothing at stake." And it was like, oh my God, she like was not the least bit nervous.
Yeah.
She went out there in her little hoodie and her little shorts and tennis shoes and just played it like a fucking professional. It was
Wow.
it was incredible, man. All right, and that's how she does it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
and you've been playing shows together ever since?
Well, what happened was one of the people in the audience, one of these rich people, it was actually a real estate company.
Mm-hmm.
They thought, and they asked us to play at their Christmas party or whatever. So we went
Yeah.
and played. We never like actively tried to get gigs,
Yeah,
but if somebody would ask, then we would either do it or not do it, like, and yeah, it sort of went like that. It's been like that kind of ever since.
that's amazing.
We,
Yeah, I know that
you
you
know,
recently went on a US tour, because actually it's a very small world. One of my best friends is Rennie Conti, who,
oh,
yeah,
yeah,
who I just had on the
oh,
podcast as
how,
well.
yeah,
And I know he opened for you. So how are
yeah,
those? And you played with Peggy. So could you talk a bit
yeah.
about this recent tour, how it went?
Well, there were two tours actually. The first one, which was the reason we did the second one.
Hmm.
The first one was we had been invited to play a festival in West Virginia called
Hmm.
Healing Appalachia. And what that is a music festival they use to raise money for drug abuse
Mm.
programs, stuff like that. They've got a big problem with fentanyl there. And yeah, they wrote to my manager and said, "Oh, we'd like Dan to play. We can't really pay him, but we can pay for his flight over and his hotel." And so we went, "All right, let's do that." And then the record company said, "While you're here, you could play like a thing in Nashville, and while you're here, you could play a thing in Memphis, and
Hmm.
while you're in the States, there's a place in New York City that would like to have you." So we ended up doing because the Nashville thing sold out almost immediately. So yeah. Well, first what happened was we played in West Virginia, and the minute we went on stage, people started like screaming and woo. We were like, okay.
You were
That
surprised?
we well actually the first time that happened was in Nashville. The first thing we did was this record store. We went like there was like a band up there playing and stuff, and it was like crowded uh and loud and stupid. And then we got up there, it's like, oh fuck, what have we gotten ourselves into?
Yeah.
And we go up there and the people went kind of nuts. Yeah, like woo. I look over at Peggy. Peggy looks at me. It's like, what the fuck is going on here? And they sang along with my songs. They knew the songs and they were like cheering us on like crazy. And that happened actually every time.
Mm.
So we were like, what the fuck is this? Um,
Well, how long had it been since you'd played a show in the US?
15 years.
Yeah, so this makes
Like,
sense.
yeah, the last time I played was opening for John in the Pacific Northwest. I think it was
Hmm.
in Seattle. In fact, yeah, I was stuck in Seattle because there was a volcano, an Icelandic volcano went off, and you couldn't fly.
Wow.
So I was stuck in Seattle for a few days. That was in
Okay.
2010, I think.
Wow. Okay, so you
Well,
hadn't been
anyway,
here for 15 years and fans are going wild.
yeah, yeah, we found out that I have like fans. And we
You
were
didn't
like,
know?
oh, well, how are you supposed to know? I didn't know that. And also, I didn't know that fucking people would like know the words to the songs.
Yeah.
Like you start um, in some places, you start playing a song and you think, "What am I hearing? Have they got like a reverb on this or something?" It's the fucking crowd, like a
Yeah.
choir, singing along with me, and I'm like, "Whoa!" I look over at Peggy. Peggy looks at me, like, "Okay." So you can sort of play with that after a while, like we kind of we tell the people doing like songs like "Born a Worm."
Yeah.
Um, you don't have to fucking tell them to sing along. They sing along to that one. And
Yeah.
so you're going like, I gotta say, Seattle was louder. Mm. And so they start singing like yelling and stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun. Or Nobody Wants to Be You. Like there were some crowds. What in New York it started where they were like, nobody wants to be you. We're like, holy shit. So
Wow.
yeah. Anyway, after the first thing, like the West Virginia and Nashville and Memphis and New York thing, we thought, God, if it's going to be like that, um, then this is like totally easy. You go up there and they love you from the beat. They just announce your name and the people love you already. So we decided we'd do it again. We went did the West Coast tour
Yeah.
from Seattle, Portland, Sacramento, San Francisco, Felton, and yeah, down the West Coast.
Nice. How were those shows?
I have to say it was all wonderful. There is a
Oh,
problem
good.
though. Um, it's like uh, being on tour. Like we'd never really toured seriously before,
Yeah.
and so there are some things you have to learn. Like one thing we found out, we had to go from Nashville when we were on the first tour. We went from Nashville to West Virginia, and we got to our Airbnb at midnight, and we had to get up at 2 in the morning to fly to West Virginia. And so, like Peggy had chest pains. She thought maybe she was having a heart attack.
Oh
So
no.
things like that you want to avoid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like give yourself a little bit of time. Of
Uh-huh.
course, it's not that simple. You have to like book these venues, and you don't just get to pick your date. Everybody wants Friday and Saturday night,
Right.
So it's like okay, um, but you want to not put yourself in a position where people are having fucking chest pains.
Yeah, of course not. Okay, so you were you were learning about touring.
Learning
Um,
about tools.
so
Well,
I
let me
would
finish. Yep.
Oh, go ahead,
The
go ahead.
yeah, yeah. Like we tried to not have one show right after the other,
Mm-hmm.
but we did Seattle on one night, and the next night we did Portland.
Mm-hmm.
And like you can do that. It's not that bad. But if you do it for 3 weeks, it sort of fucks you up. It's
Yeah.
like you go to the bathroom when you can, you eat when you can, you take a shower when you can. You don't really have that much. Yeah, you don't have that much to say about how you live.
Yeah, exactly. The schedule's really determined for you.
Yeah.
So I would really love to ask you a bit about guitars that you and instruments that you build. So when
Okay.
did you start building instruments?
I won, like I told you before, I won a prize.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I won, and it was like 10,000 is either marks or euros. I think it was euros. And I was at that time, I was really sort of sick of the art scene in Nuremberg.
Mm-hmm.
It's like just you get tired of the same people and the same bullshit and the same everything.
Mm-hmm.
And this friend of mine, also a painter, of course, knew that I had won this money and came by with a book, How to Build a Six-String Guitar or
Just started with
Steel-String
a
Guitar.
book. Yeah.
Well, he brought this book. He knew I'd jump on that,
Yeah.
and so yeah. So we started. Like I had enough money. I didn't have to earn any money for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so we started building a guitar or guitars. It's right here, actually, the first one. Let me see if can you see it?
Yeah, I can. Oh my gosh. Okay, so can
Yeah.
you tell me a bit about this? I mean, the shape is obviously very singular. So,
Well, okay, yeah, the shape happened like this. Like the first thing you have to make is a bending iron.
mm-hmm.
You take a piece of aluminum tubing and you cap one in and you cap the other in and you make a hole and you point a propane torch into there
Mm-hmm.
and it gets hot. And you have to buy the wood, of course. In this
Mm-hmm.
case, it's maple. Bought some maple, and we had never done it before, so we wet some maple, and also had no like standard form. So I bent one side, and my friend bent the other side, and I made a guitar out of it.
Okay, so you both
Like,
had your own sides, and that's how that
yeah,
happened.
yeah,
Okay,
like I
amazing.
don't know, whose was which, but it's also got kind of an interesting because the problem with this thing was how to deal with uh, they don't end in the same place.
Right.
So can you see that?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
There's like a kind of a weird,
You
yeah.
had to get creative with the top.
I had to get creative with the neck body
Yeah.
joint. Yeah.
Yeah. What other kinds of instruments have you built over the years?
um, let's see. We've got one of these. This is an improved version of the paper banjo.
Nice. Okay, so what materials do you start with here?
This one's made out of multiplex plywood and watercolor paper.
Wow. Where'd you get the idea for that?
A friend of mine gave me, he was like a watercolorist, a very
Mhm.
good one. And he had this like super heavy, super expensive watercolor paper. Like you can just make it, you could put puddles and it doesn't warp or anything. It's like
Wow.
plywood practically. And I was afraid to paint on it because it's so good.
Yeah.
I thought, well, fuck it, I'll make a banjo out of it. And so I made a couple of those. Um,
Yeah, you know the next logical thought. Make a
yeah, what, I
banjo
mean,
out of it.
what
Yeah.
else would you do? Let me see. I made a bunch of guitars actually.
Yeah.
Or a few. I also made, let's see if you can see that. Can you see the trombone
I
up
can.
there?
I'm looking at like a pale blue tealish
Yeah, that
trombone.
was a, yeah. And then I built this saxophone.
And you
Can you
and
see
you
the,
I can, yeah. And you mentioned earlier that these are all instruments that you play on your records.
yeah.
Amazing.
Here's a microphone that I made.
Wow.
Can you see it?
When did
Here's
you get
a,
into making microphones? Because that's a totally different ball game.
yeah, it's kind of a different thing, but you can do it. And it's like ribbon microphones are really easy to make,
Yeah,
actually. The hard part is getting the stuff you need.
right.
Like you have to get this really, really thin aluminum foil, and then
Uh-huh.
you have to get a gear and sort of scrunch the stuff.
Uh-huh.
And you need these there are these I don't know how you pronounce it in English, neodyme magnets
Uh-huh.
that are incredibly strong, um, which has made ribbon microphones popular again.
Yeah.
Um, and they're like they come in the mail and they have a piece of plastic between them and
Mm-hmm.
they come with a warning. Be careful. These are very strong magnets and can injure you. And I saw
Okay.
that. I was like, oh, fuck you. That's not a problem. The first thing I did was just like, I had to just have made a bloody mess out of my fingers. They're
But
extremely strong.
because of the magnets.
The magnets pull together. Like the only way to get them apart is to twist them so they're 90 degrees to each other and then pull. Like you have to like go close to your body and pull them apart. They're
Oh,
super
no.
strong.
Wow, okay. So
Anyway,
you
but
built
but
everything.
yeah, they're like not. You also have to get a transformer. I think it's a 30. It's either a 25-to-1 or 35-to-1 step up transformer, so it ups the voltage.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and
Wow.
then they sound really good too. They sound like reality. You know how condenser mics are sort of they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of too a little bit too sharp. Like
Yeah.
that's not how what reality sounds like. And the ribbon microphones don't do that. They
Yeah.
sound like like the real world.
Totally. So,
Yeah.
kind of on that, I would love to hear a bit about what you're working on right now, art or music or anything.
Um, yeah, what am I working on right now? Well, I'm making a synthesizer.
You're making a
Um,
synth? Have you made one
yeah,
before?
no,
Oh, so this is a
but
first for you.
well, yeah. You know, I've actually got like a zillion synthesizer software synthesizers on my computer, but I don't like them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're always too complicated and do too much.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to make is going to be it's going to be like a special musical instrument. I'm going to have to show you what I've done here. All right. Do you see this?
I can, yeah. So can you describe what
Okay.
that is?
Yeah, these are three micro switches glued together.
Three micro switches glued
So
together.
yeah, and oops, I just accidentally turned on the video. I'm going to turn that off. Stop. Um, all right. So the idea is it's going to be sort of like an accordion.
Okay.
The the three switches on there are going to activate three notes, which will
Okay.
be a chord. So
Cool.
so let's say I want a C chord. If I push down all three notes, it's going to play a C, an E, and a G.
Yeah.
And then the next one, the next three glued together things will be, for example, an F chord. Um, so it's going to be a fairly simple thing.
Yeah.
I may put in the relative minor, I may not.
Uh-huh.
But um, in fact, I just got a delivery today of things. Um, there are these things.
So what are those?
Okay, what that is actually a function generator.
Okay.
So you can take that thing and you can make a square wave or a sawtooth wave or a triangle wave or a sine wave with it, depending on
Cool.
where you take it off on the filter. So I like the sine wave for everything,
Uh-huh.
and um, each note will use one of these. So the thing about these is they take kind of a long time to solder together, but
Yes.
amazingly, they cost like €1 a piece.
Really?
No, yeah, they have like 30 parts in there, but they cost €1. And yeah. And I got like today, um, here's a box of them,
Crazy.
like 35 of them. Hmm, so that's going to be fun. Anyway, on the left, your left hand, you're going to have the chords like you
Uh-huh.
would on an accordion. And on the right hand, um, I think it's going to be like a slide guitar.
Whoa.
Um, you have you're using well, these things use a 555 timer,
Uh-huh.
and a 555 timer. What you do is, if you have more resistance, the note is going to be lower.
Mm-hmm.
If you have high resistance, oh, I'm sorry, no, it's the other way around. Uh, High resistance, you're going to have a low note. Low resistance, you're going to have a high note. So what I'm going to have is I've got some Abschirmfarbe. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that's this stuff,
Okay.
which is, which is conductive paint that you
Conductive
use.
paint. Okay.
It's conductive paint that you use to, yeah, you paint the inside of the hole for where your pickup is
Uh-huh.
to block electric, electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah.
And I found out that I better see if I can find one here that I made. So you take that stuff and you thin it 8 to 1,
Uh-huh.
and you paint it on a board like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got several kilo ohms of resistance.
Wow.
Um, like about a foot, I think is like 5 kilo ohms. So
So that's gonna help you with the slide effect.
yeah, I can change the note by moving the contact there.
Wow.
So it's gonna be an interesting instrument.
That's so cool. When you're building, are you thinking more about instruments you want to record with, or are you thinking about the aesthetics of it, or is it a bit of both?
A little bit of both, but mainly I'm playing.
Yeah.
Like like I made some cellos out of cardboard boxes. And
Wow.
it was like, well, just see how this works. And then I also made a couple of cellos using like plywood. They're
Cool.
not good cellos, but they in this case they look good. I was like, oh, that looks good. And so sometimes you take your time and make it look good, and sometimes it just doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that
Yeah,
seems to go back to where we started, which is you were talking about play and just having to, kind of learn by doing with visual art. Nobody can really tell you how to do it. And so it seems
yeah,
like you're applying the same kind of ethos to building instruments.
that's my method. Yeah.
Um, any plans for any upcoming shows, visual or music?
We're Me and Peggy are signed up for the Newport Folk Festival
Oh,
in
amazing.
July. I
I
know.
I bet a lot of Fretboard Journal podcast listeners will be going to that. So they'll hear this and they'll definitely come see you.
Yeah, that was kind of a well, I'm assuming we're going to go. I signed the contract and blah blah blah. We're doing all that.
Hmm.
Um, there is one kind of weird situation. They're deporting American citizens now.
Yeah.
And like we're going to be monitoring the political situation in the U.S. And if it's too weird, we will not go
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
I'm not gonna risk getting sent to fucking El Salvador.
Right.
I mean, no, it's gotten pretty weird actually, where if you're a critic of the president, uh, they come and get you. It
Yeah,
seems like, and I don't like that.
I know. Well, I'm really hoping you can safely come to Newport.
I'm assuming it's going to work out. Me and Peggy are both American citizens. She's got
Yeah.
dual citizenship, um, but it is creepy, and we will be monitoring it.
Yeah. Okay, and so you have Newport, and then are you showing your visual art anywhere coming up or any plans to?
Actually, no, I haven't been painting at all for the last couple of years.
Okay.
The music stuff has been working better, so and I just haven't wanted to, like
Yeah,
you have to want to. Um,
absolutely. You can't force yourself.
no, well you can, but it doesn't work.
Well, but you're not going to enjoy it or you're not going to like what you produce.
No, it's gonna be shit
Yeah.
if you force it. Some
Um,
stuff you can force, but um, what did work actually in that direction was we ran out of merch, and so I started drawing like little pictures
mhm.
with a Sharpie. Like I tell a story about eating ravioli cold out of a can, and I explain how it's like you do that not for the taste but for the feeling it gives you. And I tell a little story, and I started making these little drawings of a ravioli can with a spoon in it,
Nice.
and we sold a bunch of those when we were out
Yeah.
of t-shirts and stuff. So that was fun.
Oh man, there are people out there that have very personal Dan Reader merch. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. We really appreciate
You're
it.
quite
Um,
welcome. Not a
your
problem at
music
all.
has meant a lot to me for a very long time, and so I feel really honored. When I was in high school, Christian Lee Hudson gave me your
Yeah.
record. He's a good friend, and
Oh, okay.
it meant a lot to me. And so thank you for
I
taking the
have to
time
tell
to
you,
do this.
I have to tell you one more little story. They did in Nashville. Did like a Dan Reader tribute
I
concert,
know.
and he played there,
Yeah.
and me and Peggy were up listening to it, and I don't remember which song he did, but the people that they had there, he was one of them. They all played my songs so much nicer than we do it. We were like, oh fuck, oh no, what's gonna happen when we go out there and do our shitty version of this thing?
That is so funny. Not
Him and
true.
this guy, fuck, what's his name? He was like on a week later. He was on TV.
MJ
Um,
Lenderman.
yeah, that guy. They do like my songs so much better than I do, and me and Peggy were terrified. It was like, oh fuck, we're
That is
ruined.
so funny.
What do we do now? Yeah.
No, they're just doing it because they love you and they're big fans.
Well, it was fucking spooky. Well, when we mentioned that to my manager, Sophie Baldwin,
Hmm.
uh, we're like, Sophie, this was the worst thing that's ever happened to us. It was like this was fucking terrible. And she had spent like a year lining up people to do this stuff. So she's like, you can see her eyes like starting to well up with tears.
Yeah,
Then all this stuff, and it turns out to be our absolute nightmare.
that is so funny.
Yeah.
A beautiful tribute to you with the world's best songwriters right now is your nightmare.
And then we go like, oh my God, no, no, no. But that
Oh
happened
man.
again, actually. That happened again in where was it? It was in Los Angeles, I think. Whitmer Thomas.
Hmm.
You know who Whitmer Thomas is?
I do know Whitmer.
Like, so he was like our opener, and we're sitting back there, and like usually the openers, they got a cold crowd. The people don't know them, and it's kind of a
Yeah,
and he's got them out there fucking cracking up. He's got these guys hanging on his every word,
he is
and
so funny.
me and Peggy are backstage going, oh fuck, what's going to happen when we start to tell our lame ass jokes? And it ended up okay, but Yeah, it does sort of spook you if the guy who's going on before you does well.
Right. That is really funny. Well, they're all there for you.
It worked out in the end, so
It works out in the end.